Risk is the combine of the vulnerability and threats, yeah, and hazards. Well, that is a good opportunity to exchange the point of view about risks. Yeah.
What I understand about risk, nothing formal, I guess. Yeah, I never thought about it, but risk is something unexpected, like unexpected happening, like without we being prepared about it. I would say that would be a risk.
I think risk is inevitable in the world that we live today. It's and not just the risk from natural hazards. We live under constant threats of all kinds of man-made hazards, attacks, pollution, and especially I live in New Delhi, which was topping the charts with air pollution earlier in last winter, basically. So I think we live under constant threats and hazards from the environment, from people around us. So it's something that needs to be integrated in all disciplines that try to work in the development or the built environment. So it's pretty important, I think. Yeah.
That's a very difficult question. It's something that's all around everywhere, from very small, seemingly insignificant issues to huge disasters, and it needs to be managed, however small or big it is, and you'll need to be, I guess, need to put a lot of thought into how you manage it and the systems in place, and always be creative in finding the right sort of solutions to the problems you're looking at.
Yeah, so my background is in earthquake engineering, so I've learned a lot about seismic risk and the way that engineers respond to risk in terms of thinking about building design. And so I think about risk from a very technical perspective of what is the hazard risk, what is the probability of occurrence of varying types of seismic hazards, and then how do you design structures to resist or to reduce damage in those structures. So I come at risk from a fairly technical design perspective in terms of improving our infrastructure to resist different risks.
I think there's probably different kinds of risk, like some things are maybe more risky than others, but I think that's kind of where different disciplines come into play, where you have people who are experts in different areas who can kind of assess how much of a risk there is, and then them working with people who can communicate that in a way that is accurate to how much of a risk it actually is to people. I think finding that balance and being able to communicate together about that, I think, is really important.
My understanding about risk is that it's uncertain, and kind of dealing with that uncertainty and preparing for that and getting comfortable with it, and that can be a kind of a scary part, making decisions for people and the planet and the future without really knowing the entire picture. So it's exciting, but it's very serious and can be a bit scary sometimes.
Risk reduction is the communication is maybe the most important component of the risk reduction. Understanding the vulnerability and the hazard is a very good way to reduce the risk. I think that involved in the stakeholders, community, governmental organization, private sector is I think there is the way to reduce the risk. No?
How can we achieve risk reduction? I guess it starts from the start of understanding what is risk, and then working on how can we mitigate or just reduce it, even if not completely take it away. It's just about how we can manage it. So it goes about understanding what it is, and then it goes about how we can take care of it, and it involves I guess working across all the things like communication, of course that's what we are here for till the end product, but tech science working together, policymakers working together. So yeah, that's it.
By involving people who are not just disaster managers in the process, like to involve planners, to involve architects, to involve communication professionals, to involve environmentalists, and to kind of ingrain this necessity of understanding risk in the planning process from the beginning. I think reduction is not something that happens after only during response. It's something that happens also when you're preparing for something, when you're trying to mitigate the impact of something. So the entire cycle of a hazard needs to have risk integrated in it, and only that leads to reduction.
It comes through having the right sort of knowledge at the right time and being able to act with the right tools at the right time. So it basically involves a lot of people and tools working properly and in harmony.
Is that a lot of engineering design is about communicating the importance of engineering solutions to the public. And so you can design a building that is stronger, that has better lateral force resisting, but if you can't explain to the public why a design is important, then those designs are never going to be built, and you're never going to have the opportunity to see if they would actually work in the reality.
Well, I think it depends on the audience. Like, it depends on who is this going to affect, and then spending time with those people and kind of building a relationship with them for them to understand what is the best way for people to understand the risk in their personal life. I think it's hard for people to understand risk unless it's personal and they can feel like they can relate to it.
I think it's really important to have a really thorough, big, holistic picture. I think it's really amazing the people that are here today from all parts of the world, from all different disciplines, to sort of see how they interpret risk. You know, it's so easy to say this is what I think is risk and this is what I think is important, but looking at the big picture and what it means for other people is really important as well. Just like that.
Oh well, the sustainable is based on a model, right? On a developed model, and the risks management or risk reduction is to manage the developed model. Well, so if we have a good model, a good development model, we can reduce the risk, because a good development model is that model that contain environmental sustainable, the good condition for the population. Yeah, yeah. I think that is. I think that the risk management is environmental management, so it's very linked. Okay.
I guess sustainability is something to plan and to do things to take care of the future at the same time the present, and to actually be sustainable, everything we build, everything we need to do need to be managed. Like, risks need to be managed perfectly fine. Like, if we build a city without taking care of the earthquake can come, then it's not sustainable anymore. So I guess they are quite intricately linked, and you can't think of one without thinking about other.
Sustainability fundamentally is about how much something lasts in the way it was supposed to be meant to. So all the plans that we make for the short term or the long term with certain goals are sustainable only if it doesn't have to suffer extraneous negative impacts because of an impending risk. So if we do not plan for risk ahead, it can't be sustainable in the long run. So I think they are interlinked, and they should be interlinked.
So if you're trying to reduce risk, it needs to be sustainable, and every solution needs to be sustainable. Too often, many very short-term fixes are produced, and when you're dealing with disaster risk reduction, you need to be looking for long-term sustainable solutions, and those are everywhere, but you need to really understand them and make sure that you're using them appropriately and maintaining them. Otherwise, they're not sustainable and you're not really achieving what you should be.
So, so how do you link risk reduction with sustainability was actually the topic of my PhD dissertation. And so what I think about is looking at those trade-offs between, if you're looking at the life cycle of a structure, what are the potential upfront environmental impacts that you might need to incur to reduce environmental impacts in the long run. And so thinking about sustainability in terms of we have to make some upfront decisions to improve our sustainability in the long run. So looking at maybe we make some decisions up front, from my perspective, to think about making a building stronger to begin with, where you might have a larger carbon footprint, but over the long run, if that building can perform better, let's say in a hurricane, in a flood, in a landslide, in an earthquake, it's going to have lower damage, and so you're actually going to have lower environmental impact and will thus be more sustainable because of those upfront decisions that you made.
Well, I think so. So to be sustainable is like you're able to continuously adapt, you're able to sustain yourself, and I think if you understand how much risk that there is in certain situations, you can always be able to adapt in a way that's appropriate to that. So I think they do kind of go hand in hand. Yeah.
I think they're just so inextricably linked. They're so important. I think sustainability can be seen as, we're living in a sustainable future now, but the risk reduction is very much looking into the future and saying, how do we prepare a better world for each other and the future generation. So it's a good combination of the now and the then and the what if, and how do you align those two different paradigms. So it's tricky, but I think we can do it.